I thoroughly enjoy hiking and backpacking with a group. I also really enjoy going solo as well. So stick around today because we're going to go through and we're going to talk about 10 things that I learned backpacking solo that quite honestly kind of surprised me. So the first one is absolutely not a surprise whatsoever. If I'm out there solo, I'm not chatting and talking to the people around me. They're not talking to me. I move on the trail much more quietly. So I see more animals that way. If I'm in an area where I'm worried about bears, I actually have to remind myself to talk to myself. And in those cases, I have a conversation with myself. And the people you meet on the trail look at you like you're weird. But nonetheless. Next up, when I'm going solo, it is way easier to coordinate schedules. I don't know how many trips I have planned with people that either I have something pop up that prevents me from going or they have something that pop up. And so we're constantly having to shuffle around times and schedules. And it's just far less of a headache when you go by yourself. Next up, I have noticed that when it's just me on the trail, it's far easier for me to unplug from technology. I'm still taking pictures and all of that fun stuff, and I'm rifling for my phone for that. But it's easier for me to just sort of dial things down, at least during the day, and not be worried about electricity. Because it's one of those things that inevitably, when people are taking breaks, they're pulling out phones and playing around, then I catch myself kind of doing the same thing. So the third one for me, really easy to unplug when I'm out by myself. Now, the fourth one is probably the one that surprised me the most. I do notice that when I am on the trail by myself, I am far more conscientious about where I put my feet. I am more aware of if I suffer an injury while I'm out there, even though I do have a beacon and all of that fun stuff. I know it's going to be considerably more problematic if I hurt myself while I'm out and about by myself. So I am way more careful about everything that I do, just so I'm not a statistic. I'm not an injury, and someone's not going to have to come wheel me out of the woods somehow. So I'm more careful about where I put my feet. So the next one kind of goes along with that ease of coordination, but it's the ease of the schedule while you're out there on the trail, because I can decide when we depart camp, and I'm not sitting there, twiddling my thumbs waiting on someone to go. I can decide how long I walk. I can decide when I take breaks. I can decide if I have a meal or not. So I tend to when I'm by myself, just get in my own head and start walking at a pace that's comfortable for myself. I typically make better time by myself because I just sort of sit in my own head. But at the same time, when I see things that I want to stop and really take in, or want to stop and film, or stop and take pictures of, I don't feel the pressure to not do those things. So when you're out by yourself, you can kind of set your own pace, and that involves. So number 6 is a natural continuation of 5. Because now I can set my own pace, I'm way more prone to stopping and filming and taking pictures of things because I don't feel like everyone else is staring at me. So I'm taking those breaks. That means I carry more camera equipment. Surprisingly so, and I have to constantly sort of reel myself in. I keep adding things to kind of the mix of the toolkit here of things I can use while I'm out and about. Camera equipment and batteries and drones and all kinds of stuff. It's starting to get really heavy in my pack. So I'm definitely way more prone to taking more camera stuff because now I'm at my own leisure. 7th, I have found that when I backpack solo, quite honestly, I eat far less food. I typically, if I have breakfast, it's something like a granola bar or trail mix on the trail. I rarely ever stop for lunch. I walk through lunch. If I do anything, it's something that I'm again eating out of the pouch as I'm walking. So I'm really only doing dinner, but because it's just me by myself, I'm walking more miles, so I'm setting up camp later. So I'm at a point where I'm thinking about eating later in the night. What I have found is I eat considerably less food, probably a third of what I do if I'm hiking with a group, which means a lighter pack, by the way. Okay, so the 8th one on the list, it bit me before, at least on one outing. don't go to sleep too early. When I'm out by myself, I do a lot of winter hiking, so the days are short, nights are long. You set up at night and you kind of do your business around camp and get everything squared away, eat, and then you're twiddling your thumbs like, okay, well, I'm going to go lay down. I have a tendency to doze off early, and then I'm awake at 12 or 1 o'clock because that's about how many hours I normally sleep in a day. So don't go to sleep too early because you're still several hours from sunrise, and it makes for a very long night. So bring something to occupy your time. Okay, so on the subject of bringing something to occupy your time, Idea Fairy came and visited me. I decided, you know what, for those quiet nights where I'm just kind of sitting there by myself with my thoughts, which I get kind of ADD-ish and I start running on in my head. I don't do well with just sitting in the quiet. So I decided I'm going to start listening to audiobooks. Take plenty of books. I listened to this book 5 times on one trip. Because it was the only one I had. I really didn't think I was going to have that much downtime, and I ended up with more downtime than I expected, and I listened to it a bunch. You can interpret from that what you may about my attitude going forward, but regardless. So having said that, just if you're going to take the approach of taking an audiobook, they don't weigh any extra to download 4 or 5 books instead of just 1. Last one, completely funny story. I don't set my alarm and stuff like that in the mornings and stuff when I'm out on the trail. I'm typically a early riser on the vast majority of the days. I sleep in my sleeping bag more like a quilt. Like I put my feet down in the foot box and then just leave the rest of it unzipped because I have a tendency to sort of roll around. I move a lot when I sleep, and so I kind of roll inside my sleeping bag like I'm in a rotisserie. You may want to set your alarm clock. I've managed to roll around and get my face into the shroud that goes over the back of your head. And because there are no people around me, well, quite honestly, I thought it was still night, so I continued to keep sleeping, only to find out it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And the shroud was over my head, so everything was dark. And because I couldn't hear people around me, I didn't realize it was late. And it was just sort of that epiphany moment of laying there between dozing right back off. I'm like, why do I hear birds? And I pulled it down. Well, it wasn't still dark outside. It was very, very morning. So I was very late that day. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed listening to those little epiphanies that I picked up on the trail along the way. Maybe picked up something you can use, maybe not. Or if you're looking into solo backpacking, at least gives you a little point in a direction of maybe what you can expect. Regardless, if you're watching this on the trail right now, just remember, left foot, right foot, repeat. We'll see you out there soon.